Good morning, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well. With me today, we have some very special guests. As always, trusty co-pilot Rusty. How you doing, Rusty?
I'm doing well. How you guys doing?
Doing good. And then and
Good,
then
good.
our guiding star, our guiding light in options
We're in
land.
trouble.
That's right.
That's
Our
we're in
our
trouble.
our father, Dan Sheridan.
Our father.
Uh,
Good morning, guys. Good to be here. Beautiful day in Tennessee.
well,
That's right.
people love it when Rusty's on, Dan. It's I don't take it personally. I take it as I have good teammates.
Mm,
I don't let it
sure.
bother me anymore.
Yeah.
And
I think they're just
so
afraid for me. They think you actually have me chained up. So I don't think they like me. It's just compassion.
I don't
That's
know.
right. Yeah.
I don't
There's
know.
there's yeah
I don't know why they think that, but
yeah.
anyway.
Every morning at 8:45 Eastern, Option Omega's got your back. Troy's dreaming big like LeBron. Matt's backtesting like a daddy Mac. Dan's 30 years got our way, trading life and markets every day. Rusty's chained to the mines, digging deep day by day. But when Option Omega releases new features, he's free to come out and play option. Omega, you're trading home, where every move makes you feel less alone.
Rusty, I mean,
Is that your first time seeing it, Rusty, or have you seen it?
He'd sent it to me, and I've forgotten about it honestly altogether until he just
Yeah.
showed it again. That was pretty dang good.
that was Dan when we worked together. It was a joke, kind of, but what we'd say, because the thing is like when you're working at a computer all day, your back just slowly starts to like shrivel, and you're just
Oh,
staring
yeah.
at a screen all day. And we'd say to each other, you know what we are? We're modern day coal miners.
Yeah.
We're just in here doing our work. Now, shout out to actual coal miners who actually do
Absolutely.
things.
Right.
But
We don't have black lung.
no, we don't black
That's
lung for the reasons of working at least. Anyway,
That's right.
so
The cigars
Uh,
might have another
so,
story.
Cigar.
so we got two things on the agenda, the GeoDT rundown today. First off, I saw an interesting thing the other day that Eric Clapton, whom I enjoy very much, is coming to Nashville.
Wow.
And so I looked up tickets, and I've reached that point in life where, you don't want to be snooty, but I don't want to sit in the shadows of Bridgestone Arena and still pay $100. If I'm going to go to an Eric Clapton concert, I'd like to get nice seats.
Yeah.
Until I saw what they were charging for these. So this is
Oh,
a
my
good seat at Bridgestone Arena. It's going to run you about $900
Whoa.
to go see Eric Clapton.
Oh my goodness.
To which I said, the CDs, I have his live albums. That's fine. That's enough.
Yeah.
You could
What-
just use AI to generate a concert for you. Yeah.
That's right. Cheaper.
Well,
Where's Bridgestone Arena?
that's Nashville. That's Nashville's arena.
Oh, that's Nashville. Okay.
Yeah. So
nice
special
arena.
guest, the Wallflowers. Shout out Bob Dylan connection there. But so here's my question: is there a concert? Is there something, whether it be music, something that you would pay $900 to go see?
Wow. $900.
I would pay that much.
Say it, Rusty. It's
You
a
asked
safe
the
space.
question.
It's a safe
You asked
space.
it.
I would
It's a
I would
safe
pay
space.
that much to see a recreation of Eastern Roman liturgical chant in the Hagia Sophia. I would pay $900 for that.
Wow.
You asked the question. There's the honest answer.
You did.
Shout out Hagia Sophia. Dan, what about you? $900. Anything you want to go see?
Boy, you're stumped. Starting at the $900, I think something like Rusty. Yeah, I mean, if we could see, yeah, I mean, a lot of it would be past performance. Maybe to see the growing up in Chicago, Michael Jordan's final game replayed again, but that's not gonna, happen. Maybe something like that, but that would be could be one of the price tag. It's like when you think of cost, it's like I have this discussion with some of our deep conversations at Panera Bread in the morning. Some of the conversation, these are guys that are retired and they're complaining about the cup of coffee. The cup of coffee went up 30 cents. And it's like, but there's a number, right? What are you willing to pay for a cup of coffee? And it seems like, at least at Panera Bread, you start getting, $4, $5, $6 for a cup of coffee, or how about a hamburger?
Yeah.
What unless you're in Tokyo or something, what's the cost of a hamburger are you willing to pay?
No, I think that's right.
Anyways.
I think, to me, this is ridiculous. Like to Rusty's, since I'm asking the question, because the whole premise of what I'm about to say, if you understand this, makes no sense in the way of saying it. But for the sake of it, like, I'd love to see Christ. But then you're like, well, I didn't think 900. He's not selling $900 tickets. So that's not in the realm of.
There wasn't a gate at the Sermon on the Plains or the Mount where you had to.
He's not an American. He's not an American megachurch. So, anywho, besides that, if I think obviously and again, this is about the seats. It's not about like, I'm not going to pay just $900 to have crappy seats, but if you could tell me $900 to have like front court seats to go see the Lakers, I might consider that, partly because that's a lot cheaper than what they actually cost. So you kind of flip the value of, like, that'd be a value.
I thought you were going to slip and say to see the Bulls. I thought for a second you were going to slip, but you didn't. You're very.
Hey, listen, if they so happen to play, they killed the Lakers the other night. But anyway, that's a separate. All right, so let's keep going. So just to recap that, Roman chant in the Hagia Sophia,
Eastern Roman,
yeah. Christ, the Lakers. Where I think we're on a good Jordan, spot here. Jordan, prime Jordan. That's right.
The GOAT. Yeah,
that's right. All right.
Oh, he just admitted it.
Alleged. All right. Second thing. Yesterday, the market, from the moment it opened to the moment it closed, just basically, I didn't rally all day. It actually kind of got up to 90 early in the morning, and it just sat there all day. Went down to, I think, like up 77 and points, and then ended the day rallying again. I mean, the market to me feels still a little bit directionless, and I think with directionlessness, it's going to go up. Directionless usually doesn't mean you're wandering down too far.
Yeah.
Because the implications, but I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think, there's not a lot of news on the horizon, right? To your point about directionless, it feels like those times early on in this inflationary period where people were like, oh, what's the Fed going to do? What's the Fed going to do? Well, now I feel like the Fed and the Fed rates aren't as much of the news as obviously tariff talk. And so you hear this narrative that like yesterday was all about easing tariffs, or tariffs weren't as bad as people thought they were going to be. And it's like, well, duh. I mean, like, we know that Trump's a businessman. We know he's a negotiator. We know that anyway, it's just, so who knows what the actual narrative is, but it feels like right now people are waiting for the results of the election and the results of the new policies to sort of play out. Right. That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah. Dan, what do you think?
Well, I think it's, a couple things stand out to me. Again, VIX going from about a week and a half ago, we hit 29.5 intraday, and yesterday we're at 17. So, I mean, basically, the fear, it started probably last week. The fear is kind of gone here, right?
Yeah.
At least short term that we're in 17s. But I think for me, the bigger picture, and I think Rusty addressed the tariffs, is the fact that in the last 6 months, it took 5 to 6 months to climb up this peak of 650 points. It took literally less than a month to dismantle it and go down 600 points or whatever. So now we're starting this, and these are the rallies that can be hurtful, because when you're down 600 points, you're not going to have SPX up 7 points for the day, up 5. So the last 2 days, specifically yesterday, that gap up, I think this is pretty normal. Again, we've been down 650. What have we recovered? 250. So, I think you have to be willing to, this could easily go up another 50 or 100 before it comes back. But I think, with the VIX down, I mean, the candles are getting better, right? The candles, a little bit, but they're still wide enough. So it's not like it's, I think of like the, what is it? The dove in the Noah's Ark with the, Noah threw out the dove, right? Was it a dove? Wait.
To go check for the land.
Well, to check, and he kept coming back, right? And I think that's an important lesson. Now I'm getting focused on the dove and Noah, and I forget.
I love that. I love that.
I do that a lot. See, it's when I'm doing like with students and stuff. Some of them know the insanity, and they'll help me back getting normal. But
and I don't want to throw you off more, but I will say, I'll put this out there. I'd pay $1,500, $1,600 to see Noah with that dove while we're up. So
we're back to the concert.
Yeah. Now that we
Noah
have the context of it, but I think it just focus with what's in front of you, and it's not just saying, okay, we could go here, we could go there. I think it's constantly remembering we were down 10% in a relatively close period of time, and as you unwind out of this. And see, to me, I'm not sure if this is going to mirror more 2022, where the VIX range for 2022 was more 19 to 31. And so, I'm not real excited, at least as of the next hour, that we're going to go to 13, 12 VIX and everything's over. I think it could be, the low could be 17 or 16 for the next month or so. I don't know, but I think it's this amazing how quick it's come down. But this is just, these rip your face off potential rallies. So it's just, I think you just have to focus on some of those things. Anyways.
But the gaps make it tough if you got range bound trades. I mean, yesterday's a tough, especially because Friday to Monday is usually pretty calm most of the time, which is why a lot of backtests would work. But since January, there have been a lot of gaps over the weekend because of these news, right? This is not your normal mechanical kind of trading. There's been a lot of unexpected news and things coming out. So it's just, it's tough. It could be tough sledding.
And one quick thing, if I could just say, just because Rusty, if it's okay, Troy, on the subject of gaps, right?
Yeah, please.
And it's one thing, a lot of people say, well, and that's true. Okay, Friday comes, and then you have this big gap Monday, and you're suddenly in trouble, right? And you just get nailed. Well, I look at it like this, at least in my observations with students a lot, 90% of the time, they were in trouble Friday. In other words, they were on the right side of the graph. Whatever the strategy is, the profit graph, they were on the right side. So in other words, they couldn't handle a 50 point, 60 point up. But if you're in the middle, if you're generally in the middle of the graph, whatever it is, you can handle, especially in a higher volume, you can handle it. So I think, that's another thing is, we call it a fire drill. looking on Friday or the night before, especially when they're, going into the weekend, or you're going the night before a big, the Fed's coming out. Hey, look at your positions, right? And you know what? Can you, is Jack Nicholson again? Can you handle the truth? Can you handle a 50-point up? You can, if it's in the middle of the graph. If it's on the far right or far left, you're imbalanced. As I would say, you're in imbalance. Anyways, but
I think that's spot on. The ability to like adjust those trades that are longer dated as the day goes on, makes a lot of sense. I think Friday's action. It's easy to play armchair quarterback and be like, well, it's clear it was clearly going to gap up 80. We're like, well, no one knows it was going to gap up 80. But I think there's you kind of get I mean, listen, I'm a terrible trader, but so I preface this with that. You get a sense of there are days where you kind of get a sense of like going into a weekend sometimes. I'll put it this way, and I mean, I don't think it's skill. I think a lot of it has to do with just luck. But the two biggest trade days I've had so far this year, P&L, was a Friday, me just intuition being like, I'm going to do a far out trade 100 points away.
Wow.
And those, you shouldn't put your bankroll on it. But if you have range bound trades and you want to take a shot, but just do it in a smart way. That's the beauty of options. You can set something up.
Something cheap and asymmetrical.
Yeah, something for $100 that has a 20 times payoff. Something like that. And the whole point of these gaps is if you're going to suffer with them, you might as well kind of have fun with them too. Yeah. And be like, if you think it's in a gap, take your shot, But
right. But to Dan's point, like if you can, right, if you're at the end of Friday, let's say you put something on Thursday, Wednesday, whatever, Friday morning, and by the end of Friday, you're in trouble. Well, how can you get yourself back to delta neutral if you're doing adjustments and that kind of thing? So that, to your point, you can survive a decent move, especially because the VIX was, 18, 19, whatever it was on Friday, right? So you would hope you'd have a little more room than you would if the VIX was 12, right?
And especially real quick. Yeah, and especially, as Rusty said, especially maybe in an environment where with the tariffs, weekends might be a little more volatile than without tariffs, because you got 2 days of tweets, right? And 2 days of potential phone calls and negotiations. And that might be a little more risk. But on normal times, right, over 2 or 3 year period, weekends aren't, I don't any big problem, but there might be subjectively, hey, he's on a roll with the tweets. That's right. The weekend's a long time.
Yeah,
No, I think that's exactly right.
And I think to bear that out, I mean, sorry, we could almost talk. This is a whole nother week discussion, but I have a lot of backtests that go back, to 2016, which is the beginning of the Monday, Wednesday, Friday weekly options for SPX 3 day a week, right? Started in 2016. And I have a lot of backtests that do extremely well, banking on the fact that like Friday end of day and let's say Wednesday is a calm period. Because normally, right, if you go to a calendar like on Forex Factory or on TradingView or something, and you look at all the economic data coming out, it's almost always Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday mornings, right? Or at middle day, or at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday for the Fed stuff. And so you can bank on that. But this kind of geopolitical thing, it's a new beast. It's kind of like, well, maybe size down. I don't know. That's what I've been doing, sizing down a little bit on the weekend trade.
That's a great tip right there. I mean, and that's where size is such an offensive weapon and risk management tool that people don't, look at that enough. But in this environment with the gaps, size is really a great risk management tool.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think sizing is, we always try to say sizing, allocation percentage is part of the strategy. Yeah. And so, all right, let's continue what we did yesterday. So if you remember yesterday, I'm going to share the screen. Yesterday, we got our iron fly. We'll review an iron fly here in a second, to profitability. Barely, but we got it to profitability. If you remember an iron fly, Dan, do you care just to give a quick recap of what an iron fly is and what we're doing here?
Iron fly is just the first cousin of the iron condor, and you're just selling the foundation of an iron butterfly is you're just selling the strangle, You're selling an at-the-money call and an at-the-money put. Pretty basic. And the reason why you're selling those is because that's the part of an option that decays the most. It has the most extrinsic value. But because you don't want to put up $1 million and you're concerned with risk, you're going to buy some hedges against it. So in the study here, Troy's going to buy a out of the money put and an out of the money call as hedges. But the real reason of doing this is to sell that juicy extrinsic value that's going to decay, and that's where you hope to get a profit. And so an iron butterfly is versus an iron condor is going to give you more positive theta, but it won't give you as much room. Like people who do 0 and 1 day iron condors, what they like is, I've got more room. They'll talk, especially in a high volatility environment, they've got more room. But the butterfly contingent will say, I don't have as much room, but boy, my yield is wonderful, right? When they win, you can have a higher potential yield. So they're both in the iron condor camp. Matter of fact, on most option tools, you might set them up as an iron, like a think or swim, you set them up as an iron condor, both of them. But I just think there's a different flavor of those. But again, I think for a 0 and 1 day, the iron, I don't think one is better, right? I mean, the iron condor camp might think the iron condor is better. The iron butterfly camp might think the iron butterflies are better, but neither is better, right? I think it's just, you're just more used to doing something, but they both work well. And they just you have more room on the iron condor. That's why I think it's a little more attractive to the 0 and 1 day.
Yeah.
But I do them both. I like them both. I mean,
yeah, you're trading off. I mean, you basically look at the graph here. If you say this is option strat, if this is just a setup, the same test we're doing. So if you look, we're doing 75 point wide wings on this condor with an expiration of well, today's the 25th. Hold on. Tomorrow. And so you're going to set this up for tomorrow's expiration. And if you look at it, you think, man, there's so much profitability. There's so much room to do it. Now, Dan, Rusty knows because for a long time, Rusty just sat with me as I lost money every day, and I would tell him scientifically, or we try to journal it and make it less emotional, but it hurt. But anyway,
the tears are real.
The tears are real. But you look at this, and here's what I've always run into trouble emotionally with a fly. I would do this all day compared to a condor. Like I that's just me because I want the theta up front. I want the theta to burn faster. And that's the way I look at these is the theta is just burning a lot faster. But this is what happens. Quite often, let's say I put it on this morning. Quite often we get to 3:30 and I'd be looking at it and it'd be right in the middle. And I'd say, or worst case, it would actually be at the break evens. And I'd say, listen, we're just going to let it ride. We're just going to let it ride into expiration because the payoff is so great. If I can get it.
Yeah, maybe pin.
We might pin, and a couple of those things can change your life.
The yacht comes into view.
That's right. So
I love this. I love that.
And this is what this trade we did yesterday does. You let it ride. Remember, we're using some blackout days, so we skip day of and day before Fed funds, CPI, PPI, and unemployment rates. We try to put it on days when it's not going to move a lot, that we know historically move a lot. That's your first. Other than that, you use 5% of your portfolio. Not advocating that, just saying for the test, that's what we're doing. And so this turned it profitable. But we're going to do one thing today to take the emotion out of it a little bit, which this is the point with iron flies or any type of trading, really. You want to take the emotion out of it as much as you can. And what we're going to do is we're going to get out the same day. we're not going to let this ride. We're going to put it on in the morning at 10:15. Same portfolio allocation, but we are going to get out at 3:49 that day. Same day. Initial thoughts, guys. What do you think of that idea?
I like it because it removes your overnight risk. I think getting out at 3:49 makes all the sense in the world. You're getting out right before MOC when you see those large candles. Another time would be 3:54, which I think is, what is that, the MOC for Qs? Which we saw a giant candle yesterday. I had an intraday condor on. Got bit by that one. But I like the exit time, end of day. Again, just emotionally feels good, and it actually improved the expectancy of the trade, right? I mean, your win rate went up significantly. And why? Because we were just talking about gaps, right? Yeah. So, I like it.
Dan?
Yeah, I would say yes. I mean, starting with, that's a huge thing as far as no gap risk. But, for somebody easing into the world of, let's say, 0-day iron flies or 0-day iron butterflies, 1 day or 2 day might be a way to ease into it. It's going to have less gamma, less negative gamma. So your deltas, so it's going to be a little, it's going to be Pac-Man level, 1 versus Pac-Man level 3. If you have a butterfly on 0-day, and again, the other thing in 0-day real quick to bring up is just, there's this trade-off, right? This is 75 wide. That's fine, right? Yeah. And you say, is 75 wide better than 50 wide? The answer is no. Is 50 wide better than 75 wide? No. You could say, people will say, well, Dan, you do 75 wide, your break even, so you have a little more room. Yeah, but it's the price, right? But yes, you're gonna pay quite a bit more. And so the question is, you have to look at, for X amount of break evens, am I willing to pay 40% more capital for 10 points break even?
Yeah.
But I think the less gamma is that combination of less gamma and no overnight risk makes it very attractive to do a 1 day. But I think people still, I just wonder, you guys who know a lot more than I would, are people doing more 0-day or 1 day? I would say 0-day because of that instant, it's that instant gratification. I don't even want to wait. I mean, you think how crazy that is. I don't even want to wait 1 day. Yeah. I want it, want it in the next 4 hours. But I think sometimes that 1 day, it could slow the arena down a little bit.
Go ahead, Rusty.
I'm just going to say, you're going to have less. I mean, you can still experience a large candle, right? Even 1 day out. But since you're getting in and out in 1 day, your gamma risk, it's just not the same. If you've ever traded 0-day flies or condors end of day and you get a massive, you look at yesterday, right? Right at right at 3:54, we had like a candle that was just giant. How big was that candle? Yeah, the open was 66 and the high so it was like an 8-point candle, just boop out of nowhere. Yeah. And so your gamma risk there is just massive, and you can get upside down real quick. But in a 1 day trade like this, it's gonna move, but it's not gonna move the same velocity that a 0-day would.
Well, and to those points, like Dan's point of saying, I can't wait, I want to get it in the next 4 hours. The theta is burning really, really fast on a 0-day, and your credit collected was much, much smaller than a 1 day. So you're going to get it all right. You're either going to get the theta or you're going to get something else, but you are going to get it in the next 4 hours. And so to me, I think this makes a lot more sense from again, not financial advice, but from a non-emotional trade, because what you're doing, you look at this, you're just exiting it. You're going to exit the specified time almost every time, right? You are in this scenario. We'll talk about that tomorrow, maybe why you wouldn't, but in this scenario, you're going to exit every time. It removes this emotion to say win, lose, or draw, no matter where it's at, I'm going to get out. And then it's just a numbers game at that point. It's about putting them on and making sure you do that. And if you do that, the whole point of backtesting is to say there's positive expectancy if you do that. Right. Like, but the path dependence in something like this is largely you. You are the path dependence, because you might say to yourself, we dropped out so fast this morning. I think it's going to revert. I mean, I've said this a million times in my life, or we popped up so fast early in the morning. I think we're going to retest that area or whatever. And this removes that. You just say, well, at 349, I'm going to get out. And so you look at this. Let's look at some examples real quick. You get in, let's see here. That was last Friday. You get in Friday. Price was 56.14. We went up 34.44, 37.
Yeah, click the replay on that one, will you? I just want to see it.
Yeah. 37 points. You got out at 349, and you still made money.
Yeah.
On a day that it moved, quite a bit towards we gapped down, I think Friday, and it rallied quite a bit, and you still made money.
And you see the VIX dropping there, which probably helped the trade, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. But so, I just talked about how intuition, if you want to take a shot, these are not the type of trades to take a shot on, because Friday, if you would have held that, you'd be up money going into Friday, and you might think to yourself, where are the shorts at? The shorts are 56.15. You might say to yourself, okay, well, we ended at 56.47. I think Monday morning we'll retest that, and I'll just get out Monday morning for a larger credit. And, you woke up yesterday, Monday, and it's gone. It ain't coming back. You're you're gone. So that now you'll notice we haven't improved the test that much from a MAR perspective, but what you have done is just to compare these here real quick. This is the original one. 0.1 MAR, 52% drawdown, 19,000. Okay. 44,000. So you're making more money.
With a great way up. Yeah.
A much greater, much less drawdown.
Yeah.
Much greater CAGR. And therefore your MAR is higher. And so just these little things, a lot of times I'll see tests and people say, these trades suck. They don't work anymore. And yeah, I bet you do. Yeah, Dan, I bet you get that all the time. I can't imagine teaching someone.
There were years of pain behind that statement I just heard.
You teach someone you teach someone the craft, they trade it twice, and they say, listen, with all due respect, I don't think this thing works.
Oh, that's the the wah wah, like from the babies. It's all the time. But I say, but it's trying to get the focus back. And you just said it. It's a little, hey, what's different here? We're in a down move, high vol. We haven't seen much of that in the last 10 years relatively to the upside. Okay. What tweak would have made it better? Instead of, it's easier to declare the butterfly is dead or the double calendar is dead, right? Than it is to go back and say, well, okay, let's declare it dead, but let's go back over that and see what would have worked. Did anybody in the world during that period of time make money with my strategy, right? Did anybody, but it's sometimes it is a tweak, right? And it is a, going back and call it like an autopsy, right? It's going back and looking at it and say, is there anything I can do different? Is there anything, like when you have a back test, you filter the losers, and you look at that and just see, is there anything? And there might not be anything, and it might not come to you right away, but I think focus on that versus, the usual, and I know it's coming before it is, if you lose on, and that's the, I wouldn't say everybody, but some people, a butterfly loses twice or a calendar loses twice. It's dead. It's a new environment. It's a new world. It's a new generation, and it doesn't work. And now we should just take shots every day.
Yeah.
Or
something. So just take. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
exactly. I should start allocating 15% to my intuition. This has always worked well for me. Yeah.
But I mean, here's something important though. I mean, what Dan was saying. So there was one day in particular where this strategy actually used to work really well overnight, right? And that was Friday to Monday. There is a like 10-year back, or maybe back to 2016 backtest that worked exceedingly well from Friday to Monday. I have not run it lately, but I almost can guarantee you that it has not done well over the past 3 months. And so the point is you go and you look at that and you say to yourself, sorry, my dog wants out of my room. It's driving me crazy. Joys of working from home. Is you go back and you look at that and you say, instead of just throwing your hands up, say, oh, the weekend trade doesn't work any well. You know what I did? I went back and I looked at 2016 to 2017 transition and the 2020 to 2021 transition. What are those? Election years. And how did it do the first 3 months? Not great, not as good as the rest of the time. It's like, oh, maybe there's something here where there's more geopolitical stuff happening at the beginning of a term of a presidency in the US that affects the markets over the weekend in a disproportionate way. So instead of throwing your hands up, you look at a pattern, you say, well, maybe I'll revisit this thing and once the spring is over, maybe I'll size down, to your point. Maybe I'll size down a little bit until, the geopolitical risk calms down, if it does. It's just common sense sometimes.
Yeah, and one quick comment, going on with Rusty said about the geopolitical. Let's just say we took out all the election stuff and the tariff, and you said, would we have gone down 10%? I mean, think about 2, 3, 4 months ago. I had more students who are long portfolio who would lose money if it went down, saying, we need to go down. They were like saying, this is not good that we're hanging up here. We need to go down. And then once we go down, it's, goats jumping out the window. It's because of the speed, because of the speed of the downside. But I mean, without Trump, without all of that, I mean, you could call it a catalyst. We needed a little, it's like not having rain for a while. We needed to go down, and I still think we would have. But this is obviously much more, much more, I don't want to say, I was going to say entertaining. I don't know if that's the right
word. It's bear fuel. It's fuel for the bear.
Yeah.
Well, and final thought on that, Jim Dalton, who does market profile, he does, I don't remember exactly the saying, but basically he says sometimes the market has to drop to find new buyers. Like a healthy market, because it's an auction, the price does need to go down a little bit to find new buyers, because you get to the top, there's just no one else buying at that point.
That's great.
Well, didn't Buffett? I mean, a few articles I've seen on Buffett, like, just like, again, could be for different reasons, but he was accumulating a lot of cash.
Yeah.
I don't know if that could be with age or transition, but I think a lot of it had to do with, he didn't see any good, he wanted it to come down. And that's a lot of these guys, they want discounts like everybody else.
He's happy to collect 4 or 5%.
Waiting
and
for
risk-free rate, and just on 4 trillion or whatever his amount is.
4 trillion. 4
trillion. Guys, it's been a fun one. We'll be back tomorrow to continue this test. Tomorrow we're going to add something that you probably are all waiting for, some guardrails. So anyway, hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and we will talk to you soon.
See you guys. Have a good one.